Namaste, and I'm doing this recording because in the previous class I forgot to press the record button. Okay, so this is a solo recording. So let's start by doing nothing, because primarily the practice is really doing nothing, which is actually an oxymoron because how does one really do nothing? And yet, uh, whether we are doing something or not, or whether we are believing that we are doing something or not, life is happening. Neither of us can really choose and say that, okay, I don't want to experience life. Neither of us can choose to say that, I don't, I want to stop my thinking. We don't have that choice. So life is happening, experiences are happening, thoughts are happening, actions are happening. But um, the only difference between a sage or a wise person or a self-realized person and a person who is believing uh, that he is a person, hmm, based on the concepts of the mind, is that this wise person or the sage is doesn't have the belief or the notion that I am a person who is doing something. He has realized that life is happening. Whereas a person who is not realized that is believing I am a person, I am born in time, I have this history, I have this future, I make these decisions, I am controlling my life, I am making my life, I'm in charge of my life, all these notions. So essentially, there are, actually there are three ways of, generally speaking, that I have come across in terms of spiritual practice. Most conventional paths or process follow this model, which means um, you are a person, you need to do some spiritual practices, you need to purify yourself, you need to cultivate virtues of compassion, kindness, free yourself of all your impurities and anger and resentment and feelings of ill will towards anybody. And then the more practices you do, the more you come into awareness, then the more you are able to purify yourself. Then you are ready for realizing your true self. So that is one model, which means first you do all of this and then you are ready for that ultimate wisdom and knowledge. Then on the other hand is there are, I would say that's a minority, real minority, which says that there's nothing you can really do. You're wasting your time by thinking that you can do something. If the realization is meant to happen, then it will happen. If it's not meant to happen, it will not happen because everything is happening by itself. So you believing that I am a person who can do something, and by doing these practices or cultivating virtues or purifying myself or healing myself, all of that, and then one fine day I will realize the ultimate truth that everything is happening by itself. So if the ultimate truth is the realization that I'm not a person who's doing something and everything is happening by itself, then the notion, the idea that I can do some practice to realize that ultimate truth where I'm not a person and everything is happening by itself is a non-starter from the beginning itself. So this set of people say that nahi, you can listen to all these talks, you can listen to all this satsang and all this gyan and wisdom, but whatever has to happen has happened. If you want, you can do meditation, you can do whatever you want. If that realization is meant to happen, then it will happen. If it's not meant to happen, so I've read some of them say, just go for a walk in the park. You can just walk your dog. You can have a cup of coffee. You have some cinnamon roll or whatever. Just live your life, and what has to happen will happen. So that's the other. So one is the model which says you need to do something. You have to have spiritual practices, meditation, cultivate virtues, purify yourself, all of that, and then you are eligible for the ultimate wisdom, which is life is happening by itself. And then the other set of people are saying that तुम कर लो मेडिटेट, तुम कर लो जो करना तुम्हें, जो रियलाइजेशन अगर होना है तो होगा, अगर नहीं होना है तो नहीं होगा. My my practice and my experience and my realization has been a middle ground of both these extremes. And there are, of course, some teachers who I resonate with. If I have to name the teachers whose teachings I resonate with, then those teachers would be Ramana Maharshi, Nisargadatta Maharaj. They are teachers from the Advaita tradition. There would be Jiddu Krishnamurti. There would be an Eckhart Tolle. So these are some, I think recently also, the person who's written 2 books which have done very well is Michael Singer. He's written The Untethered Soul and so I feel these people are saying the same thing in different ways. And it's not that I'm following this person's teachings or not, but I feel based on my own experience and my own realization that what these people are saying, I'm resonating with them. Now, each one is using different terminologies, like Krishnamurti says choiceless awareness, Eckhart Tolle says the power of now, be present. Maybe Ramana Maharshi says just be as you are. Nisargadatta Maharaj says just focus your attention on the feeling of I am. Or Michael Singer's surrender, let go, just be. So different things that they are saying, but referring to the same thing. And then what is the middle part? The middle part is how can one do nothing? Now that's really the question. How can one make a practice of doing nothing? That is the question, because the realization is that everything is happening. So if everything is happening, then how can I do nothing? So the only thing is that this mind, this unconscious mind, and the thoughts which are running all the time from morning to night, as soon as you wake up, the radio gets started until the time you go to sleep, it on. And this radio is constantly churning thoughts and thoughts and thoughts and thoughts and thoughts and thoughts and thoughts. It's said that you have 80,000 thoughts a day, out of which maybe 90% of the thoughts are not even constructive or productive or necessary also. So every thought brings with it a person called me, and every thought brings with it a person called me existing in time. So only when you have a thought, or rather a thought comes about, this person called me comes into existence, that I am Ajay, I am ABC, I am XYZ, I was born on so and so date, on so and so time, and all of that, and this is what happened to me in the past, and then this is what I have to do, and these are the choices I'm making, and this is my perceived future, and all this character and the story with the time, the past and the future, and the character with the story comes only when the thought begins to emerge. And actually it's not even like you choose that I will think. You can say that you are thinking if you have conscious control over your thinking. But if you don't have conscious control over your thinking process, then how can you say even you're thinking? Like if I were to ask you or anyone that Are you breathing? Then, of course, most people say, yes, I am breathing. Then again, if I ask, are you really breathing? Then after some time, they will realize that breath is happening. And similarly, I can ask, are you making your heart beat? Again, the heart is beating, the nervous system is happening. So you're not consciously controlling these processes. But you will say, yeah, I am thinking, I am choosing, I am deciding. So if you're doing all these functions are related to the thought activity and to the mind activity, then you should have complete control over this process. Now, what do I mean by having complete control of the process? Simply, if I if I ask you to raise your right hand, okay, raise your right hand. And then I say, okay, bring your right hand down. You bring your right hand down. If I tell you stop your thinking, can you stop your thinking? Can anyone stop? Can we stop our thinking? It's just not possible. So if we cannot stop a process consciously, it's basically meaning that we have no conscious control over this process, that these thoughts are going on by themselves on their own. It's not something that we are choosing to think. Like if I were to ask you, okay, think about this and don't think about this. Your mind thinks whatever it has to think, and that's the biggest problem, that you have thoughts which are unpleasant, and even if you don't want to think them, the mind just keeps churning those thoughts. So this is a process that we don't have control over. So what is it that we can really control, if at all there is an element of control? Where, see, one school of thought is saying we have control, we can choose, we can make right choices, we can become a better person, we can become virtuous, we can do all of this. This is the school of thought. This is typically what most spiritual paths, religious paths are about. Another school of thought which is saying there's life is happening, there's really no choice, you can't do anything, what has to happen is happening, will continue to happen. You, if you think by doing ABC set of activities or meditating or this, you will become self-realized. That's not going to happen, because life is happening. If anything has to happen, then it will happen. Now the middle ground is what? There is one thing which is a very important faculty that most human beings have, but it is quite disregarded. Now, what is that faculty? Now, if if I had somebody who's attending this session, because this is a solo session, I can't do the question answer thing. So uh, that faculty is, if we are able to exercise, I'm not even saying if we are able to, because if I'm using language, then I bring the person in, that, oh, if you are able to, if we are able to, then I'm presupposing that there's a person who can do something. Rather than if we can be, if we are sensitized that this faculty determines um, our experience of life. I think that's the best way to put it. Then we can, if at all I have to use, now I have to use the word we and you, and which presupposes that there is a person who can exercise that choice, can influence, perhaps we can bring some influence to this faculty. And this is, I think, at the core or the essence of, if there is a spiritual practice, if there is a possibility of accelerating, perhaps moving from being a person who's doing certain things to realizing that there is really no person, the person is an abstraction of the mind and life is happening by itself, then this is the boat which can take you from one bank of the river to the other bank of the river. And this boat is called, the faculty is the faculty of attention. Wherever the attention is, that becomes the experience of life. If the attention is in unconscious thoughts, which is what is happening for 99.9% of human beings, for 99.9% of the time, I'm just making a broad generalization, but I wouldn't be wrong, because most people are living in their world of thoughts all the time. As soon as you wake up, the tape recorder, non-stop thinking channel of the mind starts. Mm. So the attention is consumed in thoughts most of the time. And when the attention is consumed in thoughts most of the time, then we are believing that I am an individual with the past, with the future, and I am making certain decisions and choices to act. And that is the story of most human beings. And then that, and when we are living in that story, there's nothing wrong as such, that to have that story and live in that story, whether it is real or it's just an abstraction of the mind. But the only thing in that story is that that's in that story, or in that world of the mind where I am a character with a story, with the past and a future, then this character has desires and fears, and then there are these ups and downs. One moment I'm feeling good, the mind is projecting something into the future, some desires, and then the mind is running after those desires, and all of that. And then there's anxiety whether I will get that or I won't get that, or if I don't get what I want, then there's depression. So this is the nature of the mind. If I'm living in the mind, then I have to be ready for the duality of the mind: pleasure, pain, happiness, sorrow. This is how the mind functions. Mm. So if there is a practice that you can disengage from the mind and its stories and the mind created identities, which are really not real, it is only relatively real to the extent you believe it, till the extent you have those thoughts. But the reality is, when you come into, okay, let's remove the word when you come into. Let's remove the word you itself, okay, because this is where all the problem is. Let's say if the attention on its own shifts into a state of just being, just presence, just awareness. You're not doing it. Let's say the shift happens on its own. Like if I were to give you a metaphor, let's say there are clouds in the sky of different shapes and sizes, and these clouds are symbolic of thoughts. So there's a thought cloud related to happy moments, and then it's coming and going. There's a thought cloud related to sad moments and coming and going. And these clouds are like so dense that you cannot see the sky. The sky is totally covered by these clouds, which doesn't mean that the sky is not there. It's just that the clouds are so dense that you cannot see the sky. But a moment, at some point of time, a moment comes when there's a slight gap in the clouds, that even for the few moments when there's a slight gap in the clouds, you can see the sky. Similarly, where you may have so many clutter of thoughts and coming and going all the time, but at some point of time, there may be a gap and a realization that the attention has been lost in unconscious thinking, and the attention comes into presence, into this. And in that small gap, there is no past, there is no future, there is no thought, there is just presence. Again, after some time, then again the thoughts will take away the attention. So if at all there is a practice, the practice is, I wouldn't even say you remember, I would say, which is why I think the value of exposing yourself to a teacher or to some teachings or such classes, or maybe reading books of a similar nature, is that it constantly is a reminder It's like a wake up call, or it's like an alarm clock to constantly remind the attention which is lost in unconscious thinking to come into presence. It's just a shift in attention. That's all there is to it. There is nothing more to it. The attention which is lost in unconscious thoughts, past and future, time based on abstract concept of the mind, just shifts and comes back into presence. And the more you expose yourself to these teachings, then the more the shift happens more often on its own. You don't have to do it. The shift begins to start happening more and more. That's been my experience. That has been my practice. That has been my realization. So whatever I'm sharing is based on um, my personal experience. I'm not saying this path is any way wrong. Yes, this is a path of becoming over a period of time. You do some practices, you become a better person, you work on yourself, and then you are ready. It's a sequential linear path over time. And this is a path which says there's no path, to tum kuch karo hi mat. Mm. So I'm not discounting or invalidating anything. I'm simply saying I have not taken, or I have maybe um, experienced a little bit of this and this, and I finally realized for myself, based on my experience and practice, this middle path of where the attention moves from unconscious thoughts to presence. This really is the simplest. This is really a practice of non-doing, because literally speaking, you're not really doing anything. It's not like you have to do asanas, pranayam, chanting. You can do all of that if that's a part of your routine. But all you're doing, or all that the attention is getting sensitized to, is come into presence, come into this moment, come into being, come into awareness, come into consciousness. And when that attention shifts and comes into attention, into presence, into awareness, into being, then the realization is life is happening by itself. There's no doer. So, so what I'm sharing is not a theory. It's not a philosophy. This is a simple lived experience, and this is something that you can experience for yourself right now. Anybody can experience for themselves at any given point of time. When you come into the state of, when because of language, I have to constantly use the word you, but that's not the word I want to use. When the attention shifts naturally into presence, then the realization is it's all happening. Chalo, so let's do a small practice to experience this realization firsthand, that this is not something that I am giving you some bookish knowledge, but this is the actual experience. This is how the reality is. I think that's the better way to put it. So close your eyes and sit comfortably. Take a deep breath in, and don't imagine that now what we are going to do is meditation or any such thing, and then something is going to come out of it. Just nothing. We are just sitting, doing nothing. So just sit comfortably, and if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and exhale. In the silence sitting, there is awareness of the body. In the silent sitting, there is awareness of the breath. In the silent sitting, there's awareness of the sounds. In this silent sitting, there is awareness of sensations in the body. In this silent sitting, thoughts may be coming and going. In this silent sitting, doing nothing, life is happening by itself. There is no person who is sensing. Sensations are happening by themselves. There's no person who is breathing. Breath is happening by itself. There's no person who's listening. Listening is happening by itself. There's no person who's thinking. Thinking is happening by itself. Essentially, life is happening by itself. There's no person here who's doing it. There is consciousness, there is life, there's awareness, there is existence. This does not belong to a person. It simply is. And in this space of awareness, life is happening by itself. Nothing to do, all happens. All is registered in consciousness by itself. All is watched by awareness by itself. Being, existing, life, presence, consciousness, different words pointing to the same thing. In this consciousness, all happens. The consciousness doesn't make choices or decisions. This should happen, that should not happen. It just is aware of what's happening by itself. Everything is witnessed by this consciousness impartially. This consciousness does not take sides. It witnesses whatever happens, whatever is happening. Including the idea of a separate person living in time, past and future, based on thoughts, is also witnessed by consciousness. Just be. Being is happening. Life is happening. Consciousness is happening. There is no one doing it. Only when the unconscious thought comes, a doer comes, a thinker comes, a chooser comes, a decider comes. In just consciousness, there is no thinker, doer, decider, chooser. Just consciousness is. Thoughts are also an expression of life. Consciousness watches these thoughts. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Remember, even after we come out of the sitting practice, the fact that there is consciousness, that there is life, because of which life situations are happening, always remains. Whether the attention is in consciousness or the attention is lost in unconscious thoughts. The life always remains. Whether the sky is totally covered with clouds or there are no clouds, the sky always remains. Whether the waves of the ocean are calm or the waves of the ocean are stormy, the water always remains. Always remember this irrefutable fact of existence, that everything happens because there is existence. Everything happens because there is life. Everything happens because there is consciousness. And to acknowledge it, simply requires shifting the attention from unconscious thoughts to consciousness. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Another deep breath in and exhale. Slowly and gently at your own time, at your own pace. Whenever you feel like it, you can gently rub your palms and cup your eyes. Okay. So, welcome back. So, maybe you can share your experience when you are just sitting. What's the realization? Uh, are you able to see, if I have to use words, are you able to see these two yous? One is this you, the conceptual you, which is based on time and memory and future imagination. Um, this person called you with a name and with roles and all of this. Whenever you think, this person emerges, whatever that story of that person with a character. And then there seems to be another you which is more fundamental. This you is has no name. This you is just consciousness. This you is just presence. This you is just awareness. This you is just life. This has no story, no meaning, no past, no future. This just is. This is rock solid. This is changing all the time. Oh, this is who I am. I believe this. Oh, this is what I have. This is changing all the time. These are the clouds. This is the sky. This is rock solid. This consciousness, this life, this breath, this feeling of being alive. So the practice, if I may say, is when you get sensitized to this through a teaching, through a teacher, through a book, through class or whatever, then the thing which connects this and this is the attention. I wish I had a third hand that could. The attention shifts from here to here, consciousness. Most of the 99%, the attention is here in the conceptual identity called me, who's doing this, who's thinking this, who's doing it, while this is here. So the practice is the attention moves to here, here, from here. So this begins to lose its power, which is the power of the mind, which creates this abstract reality and then goes to this consciousness, this awareness, this presence. And this presence is always the eternal now, if I have to use word. This the only thing that is consistent in anyone's life is life itself. Everything else has been changing. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your ideas, your learnings, your memories, your future plans, your life situations, your health, your body, everything is changing. The only thing that has never changed in anyone's life is the fact that that person is alive, that person is conscious. And that is the thing that we pay least importance to. The fact that there is consciousness, that there is life. Our attention is 99% in life situations, life situations, life situations, life situations. I often ask, what is the most important thing in your life? I ask people, and then different people may say different things. Oh, it's good health. Oh, it's having financially sound. Maybe somebody will say it's family, it's relationships. But really speaking, the most important thing in our life is, hmm, any guesses? The most important thing in our life is life itself. If life is not there, then all this that we are so preoccupied with, whether it's relationships, whether it's work, whether it's finances, nothing counts. It's only because life is there, all of this is there. Till the breath is happening, all of this is happening. And how much attention do we really pay to the fact that we are alive? Never. Do we ever notice that, oh, there's life, there's consciousness, there's existence, there's being, there's presence. this presence. No, we are lost constantly in our unconscious thoughts, overthinking, 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 overthinking. आगे क्या होगा, ये क्या होगा, पीछे क्या होगा, ये होगा. So the practice come to the most important. Give attention. Like if supposing you had a guest um, coming to your house, somebody really, really important, somebody you really love, somebody you really value, then how do you honor that person who's so important? Hmm? What do? You would give that person your time, you would look into the needs of the person, you would essentially you would give the person the most valuable thing you have, and that most valuable thing that the individual has is attention. You'll give that person attention. So if the most important thing in our life is life itself, how much attention are we giving to life? Hmm. It's only when perhaps like if somebody goes in the hospital and then is on the verge of in the ICU on the ventilator, counting his last his breath, and it's having difficulty breathing, he will suddenly realize that uh, like this life was really making everything happen. Then that realization will have happen at that moment. But rather than wait for that last moment to come and then become conscious that, oh, most important thing in life was life itself. Oh, the most important thing of being alive was not ABC, XYZ, not, but life, to being alive, to be conscious. So if this is so important, that the fact that there is life, that there is existence, then let's honor this with our attention. And life has different ways of expressing itself. So how can you honor life with your attention? By just giving it your attention, which means life is expressing itself in different forms. And what are the different forms that life is expressing itself? Uh, uh, because there is life, there is breath, one. Because there is life, there is sight, two. Because there is life, there is listening, three. Because there is life, there is taste, four. Because there is life, there is touch, five. Because there is life, there is smell, six. I hope I've covered the five senses. Because there is life, there is a sensations in the body, whether you may call them just general sensations, what's happening in the body, or you may call them as feelings, you may call them as emotions, whatever, that's there. Seven. And because there is life, there is this thing which is happening, which we believe we are doing, but actually it's happening. There is thinking. Breath, five sensations, six sensations in the body or feelings, and then thoughts, eight. So pay attention to any of the expression of life, whatever is occurring in the moment. And of course, you can honor life by, taking some time out, and maybe for 15 minutes, you close your room so that you're not disturbed, and you just sit. And then, just like we just did a sitting practice just now, you can just just notice life, be attentive to life, just notice what's happening, watch the thoughts, watch the breath, watch the sounds, watch the sensations, just aware of life happening this moment. So you can do this in a focused way. Now, you don't have to call this meditation. And I don't like to use the word meditation because it has got so many connotations. I think a simpler way is sitting practice. A more simpler way is honoring life by giving it your attention. I think that's the best way to put it. And it's not something that you have to do like 15 minutes. Life is there all the time. Consciousness is there all the time. Awareness is there all the time. So whatever your daily activities, your daily practice, you can just do them not as a person, because most of the time what's happening, like if you're having a cup of tea, what's happening? Thoughts are going on. You're not experiencing life. Where is life? Life is in the warmth of the tea. Life is in the taste of the tea. Life is in the aroma of the tea. You're not honoring life. You are only consuming your unconscious thoughts. That's the only thing you're eating. The mind is eating itself. I think that's a very good statement. The mind is eating itself. The thoughts are consuming itself, believing I'm a person, and then so life is going by, but there is no connection to life. There's no honoring of life. So whatever we are, whether we are just taking a walk, maybe you're sitting in a vehicle, rather than spend your time on your mobile and then unconscious thoughts, just honor life, because life is the most important thing. Whenever you can. And this is why I recommend somebody to come to this class, because what I'm saying is the core message is essentially the same. Class after class, said in different ways, different ways, different ways. But the teaching, if I may call it, or maybe I think a better word is sharing, sensitizes you, sensitizes your attention to realize the most important thing is in life itself, and I must honor life by giving it my attention. And then you don't have to, now this is where the difference is, you don't have to mm, practice awareness. The awareness begins to shift on its own because you have sensitized it to these teachings. And that's the value of this wisdom. Automatically, the attention starts coming back into consciousness, into consciousness, into consciousness, into consciousness, into consciousness. And whenever it's lost in unconscious thoughts and it creates a person in time and all that, that's fine too. Don't fight that. Don't resist that. Uh, the only thing I often say is that don't create a goal out of these spiritual teachings that, oh, now the mind. Don't create a concept out of these teachings. The purpose of these teachings is to free yourself from all the concepts so that you come into consciousness. Consciousness has no concepts. Awareness has no concepts. Existence has no concepts. Life has no concept. It just is. This is all there is. This is it. This is all there is. This existence happening now is all there is. Nothing more. And that encompasses whatever one may be thinking. That's all there is. There is nothing tangible in the past, there is nothing tangible in the future. This is all there is. So come into this isness, come into where life is, come into where reality is. This. So if the mind moves into unconscious thought, that's fine. Then the more you sensitize the attention, the more it keeps coming back, the more it keeps coming back, the more it keeps coming back. Now, at this point of time, somebody could ask, ये करने का क्या फायदा है? What? Because everything that human beings do, we always do with some motive, with some intent, with some benefit, with some goal, with some purpose in mind. तो ये करने का क्या फायदा है? तो ये करने का ना कुछ फायदा नहीं, तो मत करो. mat karo, live your life just the way it is. Whatever unconscious thoughts are there, let them come, let them go. Just live your life as it is. इसका कुछ फायदा नहीं है. It's almost like asking कि जीने का क्या फायदा, life का क्या फायदा. Now the mind can interpret and make a lot of meaning and purpose out of life. Oh, the purpose of life is to do good deeds. The purpose of life is to actualize my potential. The purpose of life is to realize my true self. All these are meaning makings and interpretations of the mind. Life, consciousness doesn't say anything that ये purpose है या ये है. कुछ नहीं. Consciousness just is. Life just is. Life कुछ बोलता नहीं है. Life तो बस sensations, five sensations, breath, thoughts, feelings, बस जो है वो है. Mind comes and creates purpose and goals and future and starts working towards it. अगर मैं पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस से बोलूं तो इसका, इफ आई हैव टू गिव सम फायदा, ये है कि लाइफ और बहुत सिंपल हो जाता है. कुछ द माइंड इज वेरी कॉम्प्लिकेटेड. इफ यू लाइक सिंप्लिसिटी, then maybe this is a practice worth doing. And then the other thing is, you know, because you are taking away the energy from the mind and bringing it back into consciousness, the mind will lose its right now जो तुम्हारा ये जो chatter 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 इतना चल रहा है ना, वो फिर कम हो जाएगा. And I think the most tastiest dish, I often say, what is the most tastiest dish in the world? The tastiest dish in the world is not butter chicken, it's not chole bhature, it's not pasta or whatever. Just most tastiest dish in the world is silence. The most tastiest dish in the world is a silent mind. And when you sit, close your eyes, nothing, just pure existence, just awareness. So I'm not saying all of this with the intent to give you some carrots that, then the mind will create goals. Oh, ye karne se, oh, ye hoga, wo hoga, kuch nahi. Which is why I think people should come to this wisdom only when they have the maturity or a quest or an inclination. A lot of people are not ready for this wisdom, and which is perfectly fine. Everyone has their own path and every journey. And some people come to this wisdom like they are like these spiritual window shoppers. And I'm not judging them. I was one once upon a time, a spiritual. यहाँ जाएंगे देखेंगे वो ये क्या teaching है, ये क्या गुरु बोल रहा है, ये क्या आश्रम, ये क्या monastery. They'll go all over the place, do this course, do this course, do this healing, do this, and expose themselves to 100 multiple things. Again, this will not benefit you. You choose, like when you're young in college, you may have a lot of affairs, and that's fine. You were young, you're experimenting, but at some point of time you get tired of all these rendezvous, and then you just want to just be with one person, and you feel comfortable being with one person if you are the kind who wants to be with a person. So similarly, I think, and then there is commitment, then there is growth in that relationship. Then you can build, whether you build a family, whether you build something together, whatever, then there is something meaningful emerges out of it. Similarly, when it comes to spiritual wisdom, then it is important you commit yourself to some philosophy, to some path at some point of time. If you're constantly moving, then it's not really going to help you. It's like if you're thirsty for water, then does it make sense to dig many wells, or does it make sense to dig one deep well? So at some point of time, you have to even commit to a spiritual teaching, a path, or whatever that may be. Maybe this may not be this. I don't know whether this could be a path. This is, I think, the most simplest and the easiest If I have to, I think nothing can be more simpler and easier than this. Uh, but maybe you want to, you have a different way and a different approach, and then fine, then be committed to that approach. But if you have something resonates with you deeply, that okay, this thing makes sense, there's nothing that, then if something resonates, then go deeper and be committed to that path and practice. Because the thing is, the more you expose yourself to different kind of philosophies, different kinds of teachers, different kind of practices, the more your mind will get more ideas and more concepts. And actually, the whole practice is to free your mind, which is already filled with so many concepts, from all those concepts, and empty that mind, so that literally emptiness can express itself. Like the Buddha never spoke about God. He said that there is everything that truly is just emptiness. There's no personal self. There's only emptiness, shunyata. So, so yeah. So I think the proof of the pudding is in eating it. Practice, and the practice is so simple, which is just, if I were to put in different words, become conscious of consciousness, become aware of life, become stand, honor existence. What do you need to do? Give it attention, give it attention, give it attention. क्यों? हाँ, क्यों मत पूछो, क्या होगा ये भी मत पूछो. अगर फेथ है तो करो, अगर फेथ नहीं है तो मत करो. It's as simple as that. So, yeah, and interestingly, another thing, let me share based on my experiences. l- It's like life, because it becomes simple, it becomes very effortless and organic and natural. Now, the mind is always strategizing, making plans, and doing this. Like before I decided to do this solo recording, I was like, okay, अब क्या बात करूंगा? I'll maybe read from here, maybe I'll. And when I started talking, कुछ और ही, मतलब, what I had thought in mind, I never spoke about that. It's like something else emerged, and that is the nature of consciousness. That whatever is natural to emerge in the moment emerges. Whatever is needed uh, to happen in the moment happens. It's almost like the being, this consciousness, the silence expresses itself in a way which is not uh, predetermined by the mind. The mind is always in that state of preparation, predetermined goals, control. Nature is spontaneous, organic, flowing. It's not something I will go with the flow. It's not that I will. It's just natural expression in the moment. Mm. It's like, I think the word is intuitive. Intuitive is a movement which is not of words. It is just a natural. It it's a natural movement of life. Like if there is a plant, and if it's and sunlight is coming from a certain direction, then the plant will naturally move in that direction. That's it. It's very simple. There's no, oh, I have to make a goal out of moving in that direction. Oh, let me see, be in the shade, and let me see if I can be and tolerate. Nothing. All this is the mindset. It's natural. Is all another example I can give you is water. Naturally, just so um, this is how the universe is. The universe is actually one life expressing itself in different forms. So when you get in touch with that life, then you're connected to that oneness, to that universe. And when you're in your unconscious thoughts as a separate person, with your story and kal kya hua, kal kya hone wala hai, then you're disconnected from the universe. Then you're in that small mind. Otherwise, you're connected to the supreme computer, which is running this whole existence, this whole thing called life. Mm. If, mm, like, if I were to mm, quote from the Gita, not quote as such, but this is what Krishna tells Arjuna, that surrender to me and then I'll take care of you. Now, what does he really mean? Now people think Krishna as an individual, as a person, and that's another way of looking at it. And that's one approach. Another way of looking at it, Krishna symbolizes consciousness, life. Krishna or Christ consciousness or whatever you may call it, really speaking, if there is a God, then the God is expressing itself through life, through consciousness, more than an image that you may have of a God. So if you honor that consciousness, then that consciousness uh, takes care, does what it has to do. Right now, you are thinking, I'm in the controlling seat, I'm running this vehicle, and I am, if I don't do anything, then everything will come crashing down. It's such a um, mm, misconception of the mind. Life is happening, and it's not something you have to think about it. You have to realize it, you have to experience it by shifting your attention into the happening of life, which is consciousness, awareness, being, presence. Okay, so I think I didn't plan to say what I had to say. I had something else in mind, but this came. But I hope it's useful and relevant. And if you have any feedback, you can share with me. You can reach out to me in whatever way or form. So sometimes I think it's good to also do these solo sessions, because then I can, I've started posting this on YouTube also. So maybe I may just post this also on YouTube. And if it goes to YouTube, then if someone is having the patience to go through this 1 hour plus recording and sees value, then you can share in the comments if you wish to. Okay, so let's end the session with a small prayer, which is what I generally do. Take a deep breath in, close your eyes. My dear higher self, help me to realize my true self as life itself. Help me to have faith in this wisdom. Help me to honor life by giving it my attention. Help me to acknowledge that there's a larger mystical power that runs this universe, and I'm connected to that through this consciousness. I seek your guidance and grace to realize my true self. Om Shanti Shanti. Okay. So with that, we end this session. Goodbye. God bless.